Case study number 1. Let's look at a special class in Java API library called the math class. So you can think about the math class is similar to the utilities class that we have programmed in the earlier labs in the semester. So all the methods in the math class are static, meaning that you don't really need to create a math object as the context object in order to invoke all the methods in the math class. You can click on the link over here for the math class and then to look at all the methods yourself. However, let me look at the web page together with you just as an introduction, okay, quickly. And we shall do this for all the subsequent case study as well, just to do them some brief introduction. So this is the home page of the Java API that I showed you in the previous video. Let's now search for the math class. Okay, you can see the math class is over here. Let's click on that, the hyperlink. And then, so you can see the class is called math. And then it kind of belongs to the language package. So if you want to use the math class, you have to import java.lang.math. That's what you got to do, okay? And you can definitely read the description about the math class. Typically, for every class in the Java API, they will show to you some general description about what it is intended for. So you can read it yourself. But I also got some text over here for the slides. You can think about the math class contains methods for performing basic numerical operations such as the elementary exponential, logarithm, square root, and trigonometry functions. Basically, whatever basic math that you learned back in the high school textbook, you will be able to compute them using the math class. So I will highly encourage you to explore this class yourself to try to solve numerical problems that you actually used to solve in the high school. I'll leave that to you. But we'll look at some simple example as well. Okay, so that will be the general description for the class, and then over here, so that's the field summary. You can think about the field is like attributes. So all the public attributes. In principle, you will not see many attributes over here in the field summary, because remember our principle was we really have to declare every attribute to be private. So there are some exceptional cases where you try to make the attributes public, especially if you declare static attributes. So in that case, it may be public. For example, you can see here one is the E, which is one of the scientific value, and also pi. We know this very well. So for example, if you want to calculate the area of the circle, you can say math.pi. And why do I not need to create a context object of type math? It's because you can see under modifier and type over here, you can see the modifier here is static. If you don't see any static modifier for this particular method or field, so that means you need to have a context object in order to get access to the non-static method or attributes, right? The principle we spoke about already. And the type over here is simply double. So you can think sometimes it could be maybe integer, it can be some reference type, or it could be simply void, right? In this case, you can see this is non-void, meaning that it's actually an accessor. So if you call, for example, math.pi, so we can say math dot because it's static, and then math.pi is going to return some double, and now you can either print it out, or you can try to compare that against some other value, or you can use it as an expression for your calculation, right? Various things you can do. And then here we got method summary. So that's the section I mentioned in the earlier slides. So this will be the section you will have to explore by yourself, but I will look at some example together with you, right? I chose the absolute value over here. You can see ABS. So we got a number of versions over here, right? So remember we spoke about method overloading. So if you have the same name for the method, but now the parameter type can somehow distinguish between the different versions, it's okay. It's called method overloading. You can see either the type can be double, can be float, can be integer, can be long, right? So we got 4 different versions. And let's look at the modifier and type. You can see the modifier is simply static, meaning that you can simply use the math class name to call the method without the context objects. And also the double here, float here is quite obvious about the return type. Right, that's about what I want to show to you on the page. And then if you click on individual version, for example, ABS, absolute value, you can see that will be the short description over here. Return the absolute value of a double value. That's quite a self-contained explanation. But if you click on ABS, sometimes you will be able to find more information about this particular method. That's also something you have to read. In this course, we don't really show to you how you can actually document your class. Let's say facility or maybe member, like what we did in the tutorial video. We did not show to you how you can use so-called Java doc to actually document your class and generate HTML pages from your own classes. You may want to publicize them, maybe contribute to part of the Java API library. However, that's something we'll learn in the second year. But for this, for the first year, for this final bit for the course, we'll only show to you how you can read the API. So that's our only focus right now. All right, let me go back to, let me move this web page away, and let's now just see some example. Okay, over here. Okay, so the example I chose was the absolute value. Let's now go over a few concepts that we just spoke about. Okay, so you can see this part over here where we say static. You can think about the static over here. These are the modifier. And in this case, it's simply just static. So that means I can simply say math, the class name dot ABS, and then I can pass whatever the argument value that's necessary. You can see the method name over here. I can simply call the name by using the class name over here, right? I don't need to create a context object. I don't need to create a context objects in order to call the method. And also here you can see this part over here, double, float, and int, and long. So these are the return types. Okay, and then notice that over here you can see the names for the method ABS, 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 and ABS. They have the same name. However, the parameters and the parameter types over here, you can see double versus float versus int versus long, right? So this kind of phenomenon is called method overloading, right? Let me just write it down over here. So if you remind yourself, it's called method overloading. And the principle is same method name. All the names are simply the same. However, you got distinct lists of parameter types. Right, it's something we spoke about before when we spoke about OOP, right? Just a quick reminder. And of course, you can see here, it's simply just a short description. But if you want to see the long description, you can simply double click on the hyperlink for the individual method and look at that, right? I'll let you explore that. There's another method which we're going to use for this little example I want to show to you. It's called random. Okay, you can see here, random does not take any parameter. You will just call that by using math.random, right? And then it's going to return to you a double. Let's read the description together quickly, just get ourselves familiar with it, and you can try that on the Eclipse. I deliberately didn't really put this as part of the example code this week, so you should actually try this out yourself. Okay, let's read it together. It's going to return a double value, right? You can see correspond to double, with a positive sign, positive number basically, greater than or equal to 0.0 and less than 1.0. Okay, so you can think about what it is going to return. It's going to return some number in this particular interval, greater than or equal to, okay, 0.0 and also less than. You can see it's kind of inclusive in the lower bound, whereas it's exclusive in the upper bound, right? And if you want to express that mathematically, like what you learned in the calculus class, it's basically like this. Greater than or equal to 0.0, but strictly less than 1.0. Okay, so one example could be maybe 0.01. It could be 0.123, or it could be 0.01234, something like that, right? And of course, it cannot be 1.0. It got to be strictly less than 1.0. So that's how I interpret the English description over here. So we have to assume that for any Java developer who will contribute their library to the Java API, they should actually provide some comprehensive description and comprehensible description as well for any potential user to read. I think this one over here is rather clear. as to how to interpret that. But there might be sometimes you might reading some maybe ambiguous description for the method you want to use. In that case, the best way for you to try is to really write up some JUnit test cases on the library methods you want to use. That'll be the best way. Okay, emailing the developer about how to use their methods, you can try, but you may not get very prompt response. Okay. All right, let me say one more thing over here. And the way you actually interpret each line that you will read, we're gonna apply the same principle to also the collection library methods, which are non-static. For example, if you look at this particular line over here, right? If you look at this line, you got static int and also ABS integer a, right? This one actually suggests this particular method header, right? And we talk about method header. So you can think about this actually suggests the following. We actually got our public class and also math, under which we actually declare this particular public method, just one of them. So it will be public and then static and also int. Public, static, int. And then it's going to be this method here as part of the header. It should be the name of the method and also the parameter, integer a. And then you can think about the implementation over there is simply omitted. It's not really shown to you. As a user of the method class, you don't need to know about how the method is implemented. All you got to do is you need to know how to call the method. So to call the method, number one, you need to know what its name is, and also what its parameter type is, what its return type is, and also whether you need a context object to call the method, right? In this case, no, because it's static. All right, so enough about exploring the API together. So I will highly encourage you to look at the page for the math class and then look at the different methods yourself to find some interesting methods over there. Okay, let's now just do one example together. Okay, and method overloading, I just explained that. You can read the textual form just to review. Right. Let's now say we want to implement a console application for the user to guess a number. Let's read the problem together. So let's say your program is supposed to do the following. Let's say in steps. Step number one, your program should internally and randomly set a number between 0 and 100. Okay? And guess what? The method that we just looked at, this method over here, the random method over here, which will generate some number randomly between 0 and 1.0 exclusively. So that might be something we can use, right? Let's see how to use it. I'll give you some hints. And then you have to repeatedly ask the user to enter a guess, right? So maybe let's say internally, let's say the number you randomly generate was 59, and the user say 49. And you will tell the user you should really try to guess something that's higher. If they guess maybe 62, 62 is still actually larger than the generated number. So you should really tell them that it should be lower. So you keep this kind of interaction with the user until they actually guess the right number. That is, let's say, that's the application what we want to build. So now a hint to you, whether should you actually use a while loop, syntactically that's more convenient, or for loop. You may want to use a while loop. Okay, I'll let you work out exactly how to do it, right? So this will be an interesting exercise to do. It's more like a game. Okay, so once the user got it and still wishes to continue, you can repeat the game with a different number. You can think about a single game is going to require a while loop. To make sure while the user has not guessed the right answer, I need to keep prompting the user and telling them whether they should go higher or lower. However, there should be another outer loop. So we are talking about a nested loop. The outer loop should really try to say, let's say, if the inner while loop has the exit, so let's say the user has guessed the right number. In that case, the outer while loop should really ask the user, would you like to continue to play another run? If they want to, you should really keep running the outer loop for another iteration. So to really make this application to work, you might need a nested loop with two loops. Okay, I'll let you work out exactly how to do that. But the main logical challenge is really about how you can generate a number between 0 and 100. Okay, let's see the hints over here. So you can see this is the API that we look at together, right? It's exactly the same method over here about a random. Okay, so now given that calling this method here, if you say math.random, okay, so now if I say this, So now if I say over here, if I simply call math.random, right, static method, and then it's going to return some number within this particular range, right? We talk about different examples over here, but now how can we somehow massage the return number that's actually in this particular interval into the interval of maybe 100, right? So what can we do it? How can we do it? So a very obvious way for massaging the number would be, how can we transform from this particular range into another range, let's say 100, amplify the range basically. How can we do that from here into maybe multiply the lower bound and also upper bound by 100? How can we do that? Well, why don't we simply, in order to go from this range to this range over here, for all the numbers that we have randomly generated from this method call, why don't we simply multiply them by 100? So this one will give you 1.00 maybe, and this one here, if you say multiply 100, it's going to give you 12.3, and this number here multiplied by 100 is going to give you 1.234, for example, right? So now in this case, how can we actually convert it into some integer? Well, why don't we do a cast? So if you try to cast this number over here, for example, into integer, it's going to give you 12. And cast this is going to give you just 1, right? That's basically the idea, right? That's only conceptual sketch. But now let me give you two options to think about. Either you can say this over here. So let's say if you say math.random multiply by 100 and then cast, right? And then also another way is to say we have some parentheses over here, all right? So now here is my question to you, and then I wouldn't tell you the answer right away. So you want to think about, first of all, conceptually, what might be the difference between this expression over here and this expression here? Are they both going to give you the massage version of the number that should be in this particular range that's amplified, right? This range over here, okay? Which one? Maybe either or both, right? It's kind of up to you, your judgment. And then you should really try it out on the Eclipse, and then to see which one is the correct answer. Okay, I wouldn't tell you the answer, but if you got any trouble understanding whatever you try on the Eclipse, ask me during the Q&A or maybe the review session for the exam. All right, so that's about the only example I would like to do for the math class. Is actually quite an easy class to use. Basically, you don't even need to use a new keyword to create any context objects. All the methods and all the fields or attributes are simply static. So you can simply use the math class to invoke them. All right, explore the class yourself and then complete this exercise. And then let's move on to the next example for the collection library.